This has been very interesting. This is an example of a banner, blah, blah, blah. Ooh. Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Mercury Retrograde with Kimra Minuti. And I am here to talk to you today about Ascension symptoms and grief. Hold on one second, guys. I need to clear some stuff off my screen because it's really distracting me. And I don't know why it's there. Fun times. There we go. I want to see your comments. Perfect. All right. So let's get a comment posted up here. Today's topic. I am live finally. If you are on here with me live, drop me a comment and say hello. Okay. Hello out there. Awesome. Okay, sweet. So I was like all ready to go, and then this got all discombobulated with the stream. So today we're talking about Ascension symptoms and grief. Okay, so this is kind of a heavy topic, but it's really important. Okay, because on a collective level, we are all grieving, right? There's so many reasons for you to feel grief in this time and space that we are living in, right? Hi, Lindsay. So good to see you, honey. And so the reason that I felt so deeply that we should speak about grief today is because this has been on my mind since like last week, right? And so today we're just going to touch on a few things because this is not going to be a really long live. So first off, the topic is grief as it relates to the Ascension symptoms. Hi, Ebonare. So we're going, I hope I said your name right, possibly. Okay, so also with that. So how does grief and the Ascension symptoms, how do they come together and why are they even like in the same category, right? And this is probably going to be a multi-part live because I'm not going to go ham on this today. So let's just start with that basic concept. The Ascension symptoms and the Ascension pathways that you're part of, right, are related to simply all the things that you're losing and all the things that you're shedding as you're going through the awakening process. Okay. And the awakening process causes you to get rid of all of the things that do not serve you. Okay. And so having to get rid of things that you have used for like some of us, the majority of our lives to cope with reality is extremely difficult to like, it's hard to let go of, right? And then sometimes you feel guilty because you feel bad about letting go of something that you really need to let go of, right? So we want to talk about that. We want to talk about like, people are like, oh, girl, throw him out or throw her out and shut the door. And then they're like, yeah, you're going to be fine. And then they don't talk about like, how hard it is after that, or you know, how can you like come back from that, or like how bad you might just be feeling processing that, you know. Hi, Jane. So those are the important things that you want to pay attention to. Okay, so let's just take a quick jog back. The Ascension process, right, is, like I said, shedding your layers, shedding all of your limiting beliefs, shedding all of your hurts, because those hurts keep you from expanding and increasing your vibrational level. Okay, so that's just like a brief description for the purpose of this quick ass live. Okay, so when you are going through your awakening process, one of the first things that I have seen is that you start to lose your friends, you lose your family, you lose your job, you lose your, you know, your mind. You might even lose your kids in the process. So it can be a very devastating process, right? Nobody talks about that part. They're always just like, it's unicorns and rainbows and all of these other cool things, right? But they don't talk about like how you got to unicorns and rainbows. Like, how did I get to be so cheerful and all of these other things? Like, it's not because it's not because everything was unicorns and rainbows. It was because deep suffering was had. Okay. And in the pattern of your suffering, you will find your release. Okay. So I'm going to say that again. In the pattern of your suffering, you will find your release. Okay. And the grief that comes in your awakening is part of that. Okay. There are so many things that you are grieving. So I'm just going to start with listing a few of them. If any of those things resonate with you, drop a heart and let me know. So, what are the things that you could be grieving? Okay. The loss of what feels like normalcy, right? There is also the loss of, like I said, friendships, things, people are not moving the same way that you are moving with them. You're not vibing with them. You try to talk to them, but it's like you're always in friction. It's because they're here and you're there, or you're here and they're there. Mismatch. Okay. There is such a thing as being vibrationally deaf to someone. Okay. When you come to a certain vibrational level, people who are a few levels below you, they can't really hear you. They can't. And you're going to argue with them, and it's going to be a waste of time. All right. So I digress. Anyway, so relationships are affected, right? Family members are affected. Animals are affected. Your children are affected. Okay. You can often lose an animal. You can lose a family member. So that's just specific to the actual ascension process. But then what else is going on in the collective? And hold on, because Brandon has a question here. Let's see what Brandon says. This is random. What do you think would happen if you shot something sharp at a hot air balloon? I don't know. You could die. You could survive. Do you have a parachute? There's a lot of other questions that would go with that, Brendan. I'd rather not jump down that rabbit hole. Let me know if you think of something else. Okay. Would you be grieving the hot air in that balloon after you shot it? Yeah, maybe, because you might be sinking. So, with that being said, let's go about and figure out like some other things. So, when you're just talking about the ascension process, that's one layer of grief, right? Now, in the collective itself, there are many layers of grief that are currently happening, right? So, we're seeing a lot of celebrity deaths. We're seeing a lot of political deaths. We're seeing a lot of just some people who consider these individuals role models. We're seeing like all of these people are falling, you know? And then in addition to that, you're seeing like a shift in the way that society is functioning, right? So we went from, the baby boomers who had their, 40 years and a pension plan to kind of right now it's like, become an entrepreneur and figure it out. You know what I mean? Like it's very, very tenuous, the places that we are. And that's because we're forging a new path, right? And so people are grieving all of their old ways. They're grieving their discomforts. They're grieving the way things used to be. They're grieving their old friends. They're grieving their old places and their old habits. Like, I wish I could just bury my head in the sand like I used to, but now it's just too uncomfortable for me not to. Okay. So, Lindsay says what you have to give up to create space for ascending is definitely not an easy process. It's uncomfortable and lonely, and grief is such a process. You're completely correct, Lindsay. What you give up to ascend is basically your life. Like people don't recognize that. They're like, oh, we're ascending. It's great. It's a cellular, upgrade. But a cellular upgrade means that you are literally shifting yourself from the inside out on a molecular level. And that's not a simple process. Like, as much as I love butterflies, right? As much as I love butterflies, like people don't talk about the caterpillar stage and how painful liquefaction is. First off, being melted down into goo to then be reformed and rebuilt into a butterfly of a completely different formation. That's an extremely painful process. Okay. Rebuilding and healing hurts a lot. And it's hard to do on your own. And it's, a lot of us had to do it on our own. Luckily right now we have a lot more awakened people in the field that are able to help. That's why I'm an ascension coach, because I'd rather help you get through this. Okay. So if you need some help with your ascension process, please feel free to reach out to me. But now, so back to this ascension symptoms and grief. So I had made some notes. So let me just see what I had wrote. Okay. So I saw a post about 2 weeks ago that says, our grief doesn't grow smaller. We simply grow stronger around it. And I thought that was a really strong and a strong statement, because a lot of times we feel that as time passes, the grief is reduced. And the reality of it is that the grief really isn't reduced over time. We just get stronger with the weight of it. Like, we get stronger and we can carry more burdens. And when you get to the awakening process, you have to choose to like set your burdens down. Okay. And so that comes to another layer of the grieving process. A lot of times people carry their grief as a part of their identity. Okay. So if you've unfortunately ever lost like a child, or if you've lost like a sibling or a parent very early on in life, you carry that whole interaction and that grief of them for as part of your identity. Like, you always think like, oh, they're going to leave me, oh, I'm going to be hurt, oh, like all these different things can come from that. Thanks, Lindsay, I love my earrings. And so it's really, you end up, by the time you start your awakening process, you end up with multiple layers of grief that you're now having to like balance and face in, so that you can wake up and elevate your vibration and connect with the collective consciousness and do all these like frou-frou things. But then nobody is addressing like all of this hurt. Okay. So, and then that's why people have these really intense dark nights of the soul, because a dark night of the soul is like rock bottom. It's the epitome of your grieving process. And it happens multiple times in your ascension journey. Haha, fun fact. And so you will go into this dark night of the soul because all of a sudden you're faced with all of these different things breaking in your life, right? They're not breaking. You're dissolving, right? You gotta kill your old self to become your new self. So you have to shed these things that are keeping you in your old patterns. And so when you get rammed in the face with all of those different things that you've accumulated to survive your life up until now, you end up dealing with all these crazy emotions: grief, anger, rage, shame, guilt, all of that. Okay? So when you're confronted with all of these emotions, you begin a sort of a grieving process. Okay. And that will affect how you are expressing and feeling the ascension symptoms. It will express how you're feeling the different energy waves that are coming through. Another thing that will affect this will be the astrological transits, because the astrological transits actually have little mini lessons in them. And so grief has been on the astrological lesson for the last few weeks. A lot of people have been burying family members and animals, and so the grief is thick. It's thick right now. So now that we've talked about what the grief is and why you can have grief, and just some basic things about it, I do want to mention that in order to seek balance and get a deep purge of how the grief is happening, you have to figure out a way to lighten it up. Okay, so I want to take a moment to just cover a few ways that you can process your grief. If it's something like, if it's not a person that you're grieving, if it's a situation that you're grieving, say for instance, you were treated crappily at your job and you ended up getting fired, or you ended up resigning or whatever, and you feel real bitter about it, right? That's a level of grief. So one of the ways that you can process that situation is to journal about it. But not only journal about it, once you journal about it, rip that journal page out, because we don't want to keep that grief anymore. And you're going to want to go and you're going to light that piece of paper on fire, and you're going to get rid of it. You're going to let that burn. You're going to toss it in the toilet and flush it down the toilet, and you're going to release that. That's one way to do it. So write down how you're feeling, light it on fire, toss it in the toilet. Please be careful. Fire safety, yada, 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 disclaimer. Okay. Another thing that you can do is, if you don't feel like journaling and burning, just journal. Okay. If it's hard for you to write, do a voice text, print it out, set it on fire. Okay. Take the time to write down the things that you liked best about the situation that you're grieving of. Okay. And the reason that I say that is because you need a perspective of some good, and you can also use that to manifest a situation that will help you heal. So take the time to try to find a positive aspect. Now, if it's something that's clearly just like a whole toxic pattern and it was just screwing you from the beginning, that's cool too. Like, recognize that and be okay with that, and just be like, this was a really shitty toxic pattern. I'm so glad I can purge it now. It's been hurting me this whole time. Do that kind of a thing and burn and go. Okay. And then another important thing that I want you guys to realize is that there are your personal emotions, and then there are the collective energies and the emotions of the collective. And one of the important things that you want to do is try to separate your energy from the collective energy. Okay. Because if you feel good, you're like, hey, I feel really good, blah, blah, blah. Everything's nice. Da-da-da-da. And then all of a sudden you're like, you just got caught by a wave of somebody else's energy, right? And so that's an opportunity for you to address where you're hurt in your system and in your heart, so that you can see why you got caught on that wave. Okay. Because you're only going to get caught on things that you have resonance with, which is unhealed. All right. So that is my extra super short, which 17 minutes is not short, but that's my extra super short live on grief and the ascension process. If you're interested in learning more about this, I can definitely do another live on it. Feel free to drop some comments in the comments. Drop a question in the comments. My God, this Mercury retrograde has it so I can't speak at all. And if you would, please, I'd really love to hear that. If you're a fan of what I've been talking about, please feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Silver Lining Spirals or at Camera Minuti. And that's about all I have for you tonight, unless someone has a question. There's not that many people on tonight, but hope that you guys have a wonderful and blessed day. Thanks for tuning in.